the Russian cat writing. Oh, and the cat took off.
He disappeared.
Yeah, the cat ran off. All right.
Do you guys know that song? The
Wait,
cat
can you
named
hear me now? Can you hear me now? Sorry, the mic wasn't working. I don't know why it does that sometimes.
You're good. All right, Tom, you're up. Question for Matt?
Yeah, I wanted to explain how it doesn't make any sense for the laws of logic to be valid, right? Like, I think that's a category error. So when Arianis said that, when Matt said, can you prove the laws of logic are valid? And he said, no, that's actually the correct answer, because it doesn't mean anything for laws of logic themselves to be valid, right? The reason that's a category error is because validity is a property of arguments, and arguments are expressed in logics. But obviously, it doesn't mean anything for a logic to be expressed in a logic, right? So it wouldn't mean anything for logic to be valid. So, I mean, no one can demonstrate the validity of logic, just like no one can paint ideas green. It's a category error. And so it's like a nonsense thing to say, can you prove the validity of the laws of logic, right?
You're saying it's not reasonable to be reasonable?
No, I'm saying that's not what I don't, it's trivial to say it's reasonable to be reasonable. That's just a tautology, right? But no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying arguments have the property of being valid. The laws of logic don't have that property. That's a category error, right? It doesn't mean anything. Just like, think what it means for the laws of logic to be true. The laws of logic aren't propositions, right? So it's not even clear what it means for the laws of logic to be true.
Okay. Can I jump in here?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, can you define what a proposition is?
I don't think it's. I mean, I don't think I could define it. No, propositions are. I wouldn't understand if someone said they didn't know what a proposition is. I wouldn't know what to say to them. I think they're built into agency, right? Like, you have a concept of a proposition by asking the question. You understand what a proposition is because you said, can you define what a proposition is? That means it makes sense to say you can define things. That's a proposition, that you can define things. So I would only offer a definition by ostension, right? I wouldn't know what it would mean to define a proposition, right?
If you don't know how to define a proposition, then can you answer the question whether or not the laws of logic, like the law of identity, something is what it is, it's not what it is not, is it a proposition or not?
What the law of identity is a proposition.
But you don't know what a proposition is, so how would you know that's what it is?
Well, like I said, they're just constitutive of agency, right?
But you see, the thing is, you talk about propositions and the laws of logic. You're making statements about the laws of logic, and you're saying they're basically propositions, but yet you can't define what a proposition is. And so I don't see the consistency here in an argument where you can't define what is the sentences, the words you're using to describe something.
Yeah, but like, I mean, the reason I'm not going to define it is because the only thing I would have by offering a definition would be something like a synonym, right? Like, a proposition is a truth bearer. Okay, but what's a truth bearer? It's a proposition. Like, I'm just going to be using synonyms if I end up trying to define a proposition. Right. So it's like, I don't even understand. It's like a nonsense question,
But it's not. See, some say a proposition is a shareable object of an attitude and the primary bearers of truth and falsity.
Yeah, well, that's what I said, a truth bearer.
Right. But Frege said thoughts are not part of the outer realm, which consists of those entities perceivable by the senses, nor are they part of the inner realm, which consists of ideas. Unlike ideas, thoughts do not require an owner if they exist even not present in any mind. Wow. A realm of abstract and eternal entities which can grasp by virtue of our power of thinking. That's a Frege. Bertrand Russell said the existence of propositions, taking them to become complexes of ordinary concrete objects. rather than of Freudian senses. Propositions so conceived are now standardly called Russellian, and propositions conceived as complexes of senses or abstract entities are called Freudian. But wait, there's more. Because
Like
of G.
I don't. What's the
Because
point of you reading whatever you're reading? I don't get it.
this is my notes. And when I said, wait, there's more, G.E. Moore said that he affirms the existence of propositions, taking them to be broadly Freudian in nature, et cetera, and I can go on and on and on. My point is that philosophers disagree on what a proposition is. You said the laws of logic are propositions. Okay.
No, I said they're not
Oh,
propositions. I said, yeah, that was the opposite of what I said, right? So
so I
like,
totally wasted my time because I misunderstood you.
yeah, because
Okay, I own
right,
that one.
because well, because what I was saying was like when you asked if the laws of logic are
Okay.
valid, right? The thing that I don't understand, even if even if I granted for the sake of argument that they are propositions, it doesn't mean anything for a proposition to be valid itself, right? Like, because validity is a property of arguments anyway, right? So if I said, I mean, if you just mean true or something like that, right? Then I would, there'd be no way to give you like a non-trivial answer because,
Okay, hold on.
you know,
Let's just, we're getting nowhere actually. Um, so laws of logic are not propositions. Okay, what are they?
I, they're just like principles of correct reasoning.
Principles of correct reasoning. Do you have to presuppose the laws of logic in order to establish the principles of correct reasoning?
See, I don't know what it means to establish it, right? Because the idea of establish means something like use correct reasoning to arrive at a conclusion. So use correct reasoning to arrive at correct reasoning just doesn't sound like.
Yeah, it's like begging the question, isn't it? You're assuming the thing to be true. So I'm asking, and I do this with atheists. I say these laws of logic, which atheists love to use. Well, how do they account for them? What must be the case in order for them to be used, to be true, to whatever? You access them, I access them. They're not dependent upon your mind, or not dependent upon my mind, because if they're dependent upon your mind or my mind, when either one of us dies, they disappear. But they're not dependent on it. So they're independent of our minds, not dependent upon our minds, but yet we apprehend them. Well, then, okay, let's talk about them. What must be
But
the
see, like
case in order for them
here's the.
to be apprehended?
But when you say what must be the case, I don't understand what that means, right? Because if you think about what you're
I can
trying to
explain.
say, well, let me explain why I'm misunderstanding. You can tell me whether or not what I'm saying tracks what you're saying, right? So if you were to say something like um, what it means, what it has to be true, uh, what has to be true in order for the laws of logic to be true or something like that, I would take that as to be some sort of conditional, which is if P then Q, where P is whatever makes the laws of logic true, and then Q is the laws of logic. And the answer to that would be nothing, right? And the reason it's nothing is because you can literally replace P with any proposition. Given that Q is true, it's going to follow trivially true. Every single conditional is going to be made true when you put one of the quote unquote laws of logic as the consequent of an argument. So when you say what makes them true, it's not even clear to me what that means because I'm taking it that what you're looking for is some sort of argument that concludes that the laws of logic are true, and I don't understand what that.
In order for you to speak, there are conditions that must be in place in order for that to occur, right? Consciousness, vocabulary, etc. So
Yeah.
what must be the case in order for you to speak? Okay, and you can list a few things out. What must be the case for you to use the laws of logic? Well, intelligence, um, rational thought, etc. Okay, what must be the case? What must be the case in order for you to obtain the same laws of logic that I obtain?
Yes,
What must be the case?
But I don't like this phraseology though, because like I don't know what it means to obtain laws of logic. They're not things that can be acquired.
What happened?
Oh, I said I don't like this phraseology of saying we obtain the same laws of logic, because I'm saying that laws of logic are not things that can be acquired. I can't go pick one up. I can't get one. I can't grab one. I can't take one.
I agree. You
Yeah.
cut
So,
off there. Yeah, I agree. So
well,
how is it that you use them? Where do they come from? How do you use them? What are they?
I don't know what it. I don't know what it means to use them. I'm saying like when to use the laws of logic is to just make inferences, right? When you say how do you make inferences, it's just like the question like how are you an agent? And I would just answer that by saying, well, I have beliefs.
Are you a nominalist or a realist?
Oh, I'm a quietist.
So you don't hold to any Platonic norms of anything like that in your perspective, right?
No, like I said, I think both of these the position of the quietist is just that there's there's no substantive dispute about any of these metaphysical claims.
Well, that's an assumption you're making. How do you prove it true?
including the one he just made.
That's what I just said. It's an assumption you're making. How do you prove it's true?
Well, I don't think quietism is an assumption. I mean, there's a conclusion there, but we'd have to go through the dialectics about why I don't think that there's like why there's a substantive um, case for disagreement in these.
Well,
It's like,
I've
well,
had this.
I mean, maybe I can do it with an analogy, right? I'll try to do it with an analogy, and then from there, I'll see where that intuition pump takes you insofar as the laws of logic are concerned. But let's just try with something that's not related to logic. So I would be a quietist about something like if someone were to say something like keeping all of the relations in the same in the universe, everything is uniformly expanding and all at the same rate at exactly the same time. You know, some things might be expanding faster relative to others, but the relation of everything to itself is all expanding at the same time. Now, if someone were to come along and say, no, that's not true. In fact, everything is contracting at the same rate, right? And a third person comes along and says, oh, no, that's in fact not the case. Everything is in fact staying the same size, right? Now, there's nothing that anyone could point to that would make any difference to any experiencer. No possible difference could be made to any possible experiencer that would make a difference to the conclusions that they could make, because every single thing is consistent with all three views. And so I'm saying it presupposes something that is ex hypothesis, inaccessible to all three parties to the dispute. And so therefore it's irresolvable. And so therefore there's a substanceless dispute. That's so if you just take all those things and replace it with nominalists and conceptualists and Platonists, that's my view. Instead of expansion and contraction and staying the same size, just replace that with nominalism, conceptualism, and Platonism, and that's my view. I don't think that there's anything that's substantive that can be discussed with those issues. I just think they're a bunch of nonsense metaphysics that people made up for those reasons that I guess get.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, it's just your opinion about everything else. You don't have any way of verifying it. It's the case. It's just what you hold to.
Well, it's a
Well, I
very
gave an argument, right? I gave an argument. It was an argument by analogy, but it was an argument, right? So if you let me just ask you, for the people who are involved in this dispute, someone says, okay, the earth, and the universe and everything in it is uniformly expanding at the same rate, right? And then someone comes up and says, no, in fact, what's really happening, what's truly happening is the earth, the universe, you and everything in it is all contracting at the same rate. Now, what is the possible observation What is the possible experiential difference that could count in favor of one view or the other? Now, these sound like substantive views when you put them into words, right? But the problem is it's presupposing things like relationality. The only way we understand things expanding is in relation to other things not expanding, right? And the only way we understand contracting is in relation to things not contracting, right? And so my view about whatever disputes there are between conceptualists and nominalists is the same as that. There's just some mistake in presupposition that they have that's contrary or incoherent with some of their other views, and so I don't think that there's a substantive dispute there.
In other words, you're just giving us your opinion about all of this. You can't justify it. You don't
Wait,
have any reason.
but I just gave an argument.
No, you gave us what you felt.
No, I gave an argument.
Okay, I don't hear you. I don't hear any argument. Maybe I'm just missing it.
Wait,
But we're just talking about whatever.
couldn't you
I
hear
don't know.
the verbose quietism?
Well, you're mistaken.
Quietism means that that the position of philosophy it's the position that philosophy really doesn't have much to offer. It has to do with Quietism really deals with clarifying definitions and meanings, clarifying problems. Philosophy kind of makes too many problems out of stuff. That kind of a thing. He can give it a lot better than I can, but that's what it is, basically.
Yeah, right. So
Agnostic
we have to.
position between nominalists and realists.
Well, we're not going anywhere. We're just going in circles.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not agnostic about it. But nevertheless, I don't think it changes anything about what I'm saying. What I initially came in here to talk about, right? Because whether or not the laws, right, whether or not the laws of logic are understood nominally or conceptually or Platonistically is sort of irrelevant, because the whole point is, even if we construe them as propositions, we don't construe the laws of logic as arguments, right? And it is only arguments that are valid. It's not the case that even if we construe them as propositions, which I'm reluctant to do, but I'll grant for the sake of argument, if we say that, like, just say, if I said, I'm sitting in my living room right now, right? That's a proposition. Now, what does it mean for that to be valid? What does it mean for that to be truth preserving? It doesn't mean anything, right? And so, it does mean something for a series of inferences, a series of steps to be truth preserving. That is to say, the truth of the premises guarantees the truth of the conclusion. So if I made an argument like, I'm sitting in my living room, therefore I'm sitting in my living room, that's a valid argument. But that's obviously not the laws of logic, because the laws of logic are not arguments. They're the things in which arguments are expressed, right? Arguments are expressed in logics, and so therefore logic can't itself be valid, right? Logical laws can't themselves be valid. And so that's why I was saying what you were saying is a category error. It's like saying, can you paint ideas green? The answer is no. So can you prove the validity of the laws of logic? The answer is no. It's a category error. The answer is no for both reasons. The reason you can't paint ideas green and the reason that you can't prove the validity of the laws of logic is because that's a category error.
No, that's not what I was doing. I said you can't prove the laws of logic without using the laws of logic, therefore begging the question. They're not independent.
Yeah, but see, this.
Hold on.
Okay.
You tend to just go and then talk a whole bunch. And to be honest, I just kind of tune out after a while. It's like, man, this guy's coming up for air, and you're saying 1,000 different things. Like, what's he? I'm just waiting for you to get done. I'm sorry, not to be just disrespectful, but whew. So I'm just telling you what the context was. I said that with that guy. Now, for you to say that the laws of logic have no context, or there's no condition in which the context matters about their validity, actuality, and being able to utilize them, I don't accept that from your perspective.
Well, so there's a few things. The reason I'm talking a lot is because you say a lot of things that are confused, and so I'm trying to correct each confusion. So the one thing that you said that was confused is you can't prove the laws of logic, right? The reason that that's trivial
Did you
is
not
because
hear what I said I said in the context? You just ignored it.
so I'm not understanding. Wait, I wouldn't. You did say the words that you can't prove the laws of logic to me, right? You did say you
You
can't prove the
can't
laws of logic. That's what you
you
said to me.
you can't prove the laws of logic by using the laws of logic. You can't prove that they're valid without begging the question. I just said that to you just a
Yeah.
minute
So
ago.
yeah, right. Well,
Dude,
I don't
I'm
think.
losing interest in our conversation. Okay? You just seem to want to argue about everything.
It's getting to be super circular.
Yeah, it's just I don't
I,
even know what you're arguing about. I don't know what your point is. I don't know what's going on. Uh, I'm having trouble focusing. I've been on it for here for almost or over 3 hours now. Okay, and my brain's a little bit tired, and you're just going on. And to be honest, I'm like, what's the guy getting at? I just don't know, and I can't keep concentrating on something I don't know what you're getting at.
well,
Hmm.
let's just start with the last thing that you said. You can't prove the laws of logic without using the laws of logic. Now, that I said, the reason that I took out the last part without using the laws of logic is because the confusion ends with you can't prove the laws of logic. Like if that were, regardless of what follows that, if you were to stop the proposition as you can't prove the laws of logic, that's a nonsensical statement, right? The reason it's nonsensical is because proofs, again, it's a
You're
category
killing
error.
me. You're
Yeah,
killing
you're
me.
Proofs
killing
are
the
You're
room,
killing me, dude.
and
You're killing me here.
you're killing the room. Look, kitty, it's time to stop chasing the tail, and we're gonna stop this. Okay, so let's go to the next person. Scott, welcome. Good to see you. Before Matt has the call up for the night, Matt,